Hello! Thanks for watching Mythopoeia. My name is Chris.
I'm Jim.
And this is episode 5, the amazing episode where we describe 5 more super villains and organizations for,
Specifically,
for our Tempest world.
specifically either villains who control organizations or organizations themselves. I think that's kind of what we've been doing.
Yeah. This one seems to be more on the organizations. Maybe the villains aren't as named or as known or as part of it, but we'll see what happens. Some of these are still in the open.
Yeah. Yep.
So remember, kapow.
Ka-chow! Wait. That's not the right thing. Sorry. I have a
Yarp, yarp, yarp.
toddler.
Nice.
Well, I've only watched that movie 8 billion times.
Oh, you're talking about that car with the talking robot cars that have killed
Right.
humanity.
There's a villainous group.
Mm-hmm. All friendly and happy, but knowing there's a bunch of dead people somewhere.
Right? It's built on a field of bones.
Exactly. Monsters. Monster cars.
Well, I don't even know what to say after that. Let's go in. Let's get into it, Chris.
Let's do this. Who
All
are we
right.
starting with?
Um, let's start with Ember.
EMBR.
Ember, enriched, military, battle ready.
So I'll admit there was a little conflict in me and Jim on this one about different views of some certain things.
But then we decided we actually agreed.
So, take mercenaries
A la Blackwater.
with superpowers,
Yep.
maybe a little degrees of anything from, I've got superpowers, I'll do what I want, but still following at least some kind of organization because one of the things they want is money and maybe respect, so they don't want to be villains,
Right.
even though they can do villainous activities.
Yeah. I think it falls into like the people who founded the organization were, um, somewhat smart.
Mm-hmm.
But their recruitment is a little indiscriminate, and I think their founders come from, probably plural founders, come from the military uh, Cold War, essentially, the enriched Cold War. So they came out of that as maybe some of the final soldiers. I mean, obviously they're still military forces, but they definitely came out of that.
And the new group are a bunch of kids that have played Call of Duty and Grand Theft Auto and
Right. And joined the military, but then got ushered out, essentially. Or we're like, I don't make enough money at this, and I'm enriched. Or, whatever that is.
mm-hmm.
I don't see them as having, like, huge powerhouses either, necessarily. But,
Just
numbers.
numbers, yes. They work for they work for nations, corporations. If you need
Right.
work done and you need some actual firepower, they're there for you.
Right. Think of, like, Mercenary Cobra.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And maybe they
All
just
right.
watched a little bit too many Saturday morning cartoons.
Right. So, Ember. EMBR. I think they'll be fun to play with because you can throw them in with lots of other villains, sort of. Or you could do your own thing with them. It depends on whatever you want to do as the game master.
And I feel they're the ones that really, really embrace superhero code names.
Oh, absolutely. I
Roadblock.
mean, come on. Boxcars. Right, whatever. Um, uh, best G.I. Joe name ever. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think that they can be fun to play with, and I think they're an organization that a game master can do a lot with, depending on what they need or want out of it. So, play with it. We'll come up with some more stuff with it if you pick this as one that you want more detail on. But there's a good basic idea.
Mm-hmm.
Next.
Let's do the Golden Arcana.
Okay.
So
So,
we
go
are
ahead.
still kind of threshing some stuff out, but here's the basic idea. Some rare 30 or 40 year old mystical group. Basically, some original generation enriched mystical bit. They they try to make this organization study the mystical powers of the enriched and stuff like that. 10 years ago, oh, and maybe then they also started recruiting into the rich and powerful.
Right. It was a fraternity, sorority kind of thing
That
for the, yeah.
And then leaders started joining the group, and then world leaders and corporate leaders. Then the world leader and corporate leaders' sons and daughters. And then it started changing. Whatever it was originally trying to do, it might still be there somewhere in its dark recesses. But it has morphed into an organization that embraces the entire divinity of the enriched.
Right.
I have power. I can do what I want. You can't stop me.
Um, it's about entitlement and privilege. Um, and all of that comes with that, kind of, for the enriched to feel that way. And it's sort of a built-in organization that the original mystical organization was going for. Was they actually had, their minions were broken into cups, coins, swords, rods. So all that is still there. It's just been subsumed for the privilege and, yeah, of these entitled younger generation. So, like you said, maybe there is some of that there, but it's definitely less about mysticism and more about how much power do you have and how much can we celebrate that.
Mm-hmm. Now, truthfully, so far, I actually see Ember and the Golden Arcana probably might come into conflict a good amount. Because one of the things I figure Ember would get hired for, especially, is, a Golden Arcana person has been captured for murder. So,
Right,
the Golden Arcana's people, friends, might try to get him out.
right. So we need somebody who can, transport this person across country lines or extradite them or whatever. Absolutely. I like that. Um, I definitely see this as being an old organization that has been subsumed, and probably the current young leaders,
Mm-hmm.
who would be the major arcana, essentially the major and minor arcana, are people who understand the power of image and all of that as well. So they've kept all the um, imagery of the Golden Arcana because it suits them. It enhances the idea that they're special.
Hey, Chad, I was made the hero font.
Right. Exactly. Right. Oh, dude. Right. I mean, probably some of them are a little smarter than that, but still, it's an organization that has been turned to that. Um, so trying to kind of modernize the Hellfire Club in some ways, like the actual real world Hellfire Club.
So possibly orgies. We don't know.
I'm sure that goes on. Um, so that's a good one. I like that. You know, look at the major and minor arcana and come up with some villainous, entitled, superpowered people.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah.
That sort of have a fraternity and sorority idea of like, we protect our own.
But they don't. They would fight amongst themselves constantly.
Well, right, but we're allowed to fight amongst ourselves, but don't you touch any one of us.
Mhm.
Right, absolutely. Um, Next,
Your choice.
let's talk about Typhon.
Good.
This is a weird one. I thought of. I
Explain how.
I wanted an anti-hero hacktivist, but I wanted it to be anti-hero in the way that he can be a complete awful a-hole, like 4chan sometimes. Like, he's a hacktivist, but he can get really incensed about stupid shit as well. Or he carries a grudge.
Hmm.
Um, and I think it's a single person. But think of if like Anonymous and 4chan had an avatar with superpowers. Go.
Well, how about not even just that? It's not even. You can't even say he. No one knows.
No one knows. Could be she. Absolutely.
It might not even be anything. It might be a rogue computer program. It
Uh,
could be an alien
Absolutely.
from another world.
It could be multiple people.
It could be a giant sea spawn monster from the ocean.
Right. What we know about it is that it's, involved in hacktivism. So it will do things like, be Edward Snowden or, whatever. But it will also, someone who badmouthed it, it will, reveal their address and get all the internet trolls to go stone them. Like, it's that kind of an embodiment of that.
And then we can
It
also decide if it is actually enriched or not, because then it might also do stuff like if in the game if the game has like an enriched database, it might
Sure.
release the contents of that database,
Absolutely. Information deserves to be free.
or it just hates the very concept and it doesn't care. It uses that term, but
Or or someone told it that it wasn't possible to hack that. Oh yeah? Right. Like so. Um this is probably something the Typhon is probably something everyone hates to some degree. Like I mean, it's probably it's a hacktivist, so it would be insulted by being hired for money. It has its principles.
hmm
Um I think uh so that sort of weird thing. I think, it will even do things like start flash mobs. You know, it has a fun joking side.
but
So, yeah.
of all the groups we talked about, we can now definitely do a thing that there is an intense hatred between it and the admin.
Oh, absolutely.
And in fact, the admin might be like the one person that it routinely cannot get into the peril stream.
Yeah, the peril stream is something that it pretends it doesn't mind because it's had problems actually hacking it. I like that. I like that.
And then the peril stream, the admin has sent groups out to hunt places where it thinks Typhon is. So there's been
And kill it.
multiple, you know, big firefights or big raids on empty buildings. Or
Typhon's a great Typhon's a great person. He's only sleeps 4 hours a night, and she, I mean, like really crazy stuff out there about it. Again, and I think it's up to the game master. I mean, we'll maybe come up with some versions of it if you like this idea, but you could also do what you want with it. If it's an AI or if it's an actual person or it's related to one of your PCs somehow, whatever.
Mhm.
But just that, modern idea of hacktivism, but also the dark side of that. Like, oh, look, I accidentally made someone, super awful depressed because I internet bullied them until they, you know, right. Just terrible stuff. It also
Yes.
does terrible things.
Mhm. So the next one, let's go with the Ujai cartel.
Yeah, I
So
like
if you
this one.
ask me really nicely, I might tell you the nerddom of that name.
But we're
Or if
not
you
going to
search
for
it
right now.
online, you can find out the nerdum of that name. The history researching nerdum of that, the Ujai cartel.
So, what were we going for with this,
So
Chris?
basically, start with kind of like Colombian cartel. I don't know if it's South American yet, but a drug cartel. I think at one point, maybe in Miami, wherever we'd put it, that one, they started out and they were being hounded by maybe some low level street enriched.
Sure.
Eventually, he got to the point that they hated each other. They hired up with some supervillain. Supervillain gave them the ability, but then they also found out he has some weird technology that lets him drain or
Yeah, I think the supervillain ends up trying to take them over, like get rid of the bosses and become the boss of the cartel. And the cartel's like, "Oh hell no!" And they discover this supervillain has been working on technology that can drain the enriched. So they kill him and take it.
So there's two thoughts. They both might work, they both might not. One is they can take that energy and actually kind of store it and use it for advanced weapons.
They can turn the enriched into batteries.
Or possibly they can take that power, put it into a nice pill form, and for the next 4 hours you have superpowers.
Sell it as a drug. Maybe both. What do you like? I think the key here is that they hate the enriched. And any drugs or weapons, any drug money that they're getting from this, or any weapons that they're building from it, it's a human first. We hate the enriched. Everyone would be better off without them. Let's kill them all and turn them into batteries.
But they are definitely doing that thing wherever they operate of, you know, the Colombian cartels where they go into small towns. And it's not even that they rule it, they give money.
Oh, yeah. They're loved by people because they'll do things like, give everybody in this poor neighborhood $1,000 because they love people. But they'll also find out that your kid's enriched and they'll execute them behind your house. Like,
It's all just a ploy
right.
for power.
Sure. I think they probably legitimately hate the enriched, but also, like, hey, if we make everyone afraid and we're in charge of that,
Mm-hmm.
woo!
Exactly. So, some weird technology, the ability to drain, maybe even just suppress or drain. I think they should have to be able to capture you to actually drain you. But they
I
might have
agree.
technology to actually dampen.
Sure.
But to lose your powers, you would have to be captured by them.
Right. Yeah, turned into a battery. Yeah, that's good.
Ultra violent, ultra though political. Got some
Yeah,
weird tech, so they've got smart people that can at least continue to operate and upgrade it.
sure. And money. Lots of money.
Yes,
So, there you go.
they could
Um,
probably follow conflict to pretty much every group we've set up.
sure. Or they might work. No, they'd probably hate them all. They hate them all.
Well, there could definitely be some weird connection between them and Halcyon. Nothing
There could
official,
be.
because Halcyon loves the people.
He does love the people. The people love Halcyon. Right. Um, okay. Last one for today is probably the weirdest and
S-
probably the least defined.
Speak to me.
We're gonna call them the Veil, and they're gonna be our super secret organization.
Ooh,
Um, and the basic idea here is they believe that this world and the Tempest is the key to controlling all of reality. And so they believe by modifying this world in certain ways, they can modify all of reality.
okay.
And so they are the only people who have the power to actually intentionally travel between dimensions, and they basically are about splicing in things from other dimensions
Mm,
into this world to
okay.
alter all of reality in a certain way, or removing things from this world.
Okay.
Um, and their methods and motives are mysterious.
Ooh, mysterious.
But they are the only people who understand how to actually travel between dimensions on purpose. It happens randomly, but they can actually do it on purpose.
Okay. But
Um,
what they're trying to do, what they're trying to could just depend game to game. Their
could be
leadership, who knows?
yeah.
Maybe it's a group, maybe it's an individual powerful demon. Who knows? We don't know on this one yet.
Yeah, and maybe that's okay. Maybe you have some ideas on it that you want to fill in for yourself, or maybe you'd like us to see us build a couple of different versions of this organization. We're willing to do that. Um, it's kind of a weird idea, but it taps into that dimensional piece,
Mm,
which is something I think Chris and I eventually want to play with for this world.
indeed.
Indeed.
So that is
Woo!
our second episode on Big Bads. That's a total of 10 powerful people and or organizations.
Mostly organizations. Even the powerful people tend to have some sort of organization. Even Typhon has his trolls, essentially.
Mm.
I mean,
Next time, we are going to either start making 5 individual villains of the more, not the
independent
street
type.
thugs, more the street type, the jokers, so you would say.
Or just independent people who don't worry about having followers.
Yeah.
They're just who they are, or doing what they're doing.
And then, or we'll do some of the kind of super type, super more heroic or neutral people. I will tell you by default, in most superhero games I design like 5 times the villains and the heroes.
Yeah.
Now, I morally mainly do historical heroes or heroes that are legacy, just because it's the hero, it's the player character's job to be the
And,
heroes.
and you want them to have some allies for
Hmm.
role playing purposes. You don't want them only interacting with people who hate them.
Exactly.
Like, you want them to have some role playing opportunities with people who like them. And so we'll do some of that. But I fall into Chris's camp. I am probably way more interested in having the player characters be the big heroes of the world, if that's possible.
Yep, I agree.
So, all right, next time,
Next time.
you're welcome, Internet.
Stuff down below, like,
Stuff down below,
Daco, whatever.
Patreon. Leave some comments. Tell us what you want to see us detail. Go.
Bye bye.